It was a little bit traumatic. We had been together a long time. We were planning on spending our lives together. There was a lot to process, but life was happening so quickly, and we were so close to that kind of end point that I said, I don't know where I'm going to go or what I'm going to do with my life, but there is a door that is wide open for me to experience the world. Basically booked a one-way ticket to...
Yeah. So I promise I won't call you Cristina. You're not going to get in any trouble today.
Deal. But you are Matthew. Very clearly, you are Matthew. You don't go by Matt, correct?
You know, I always allow people to kind of do their thing. Whatever you want to call me is good.
I will continue to call you Matthew because that is how you introduced yourself to me. And we got to respect what Mom wants.
That's right. Exactly. Now, Cris, your story starts back in 2017, at least the most current story. And you've been all over the world and you battled some like growing up stuff, demons and otherwise, and relationship breakups and so on. Could you take us back to 2017 when the shit started to hit the fan?
Oh my gosh. It feels like a lifetime ago. I was just reminded that it's only been about 6 years since all that started. So yeah, it was, I had a wonderful plan with my partner at the time, and we wanted to go and see the world. We had done some traveling together, and he had a great job opportunity. And, we had planned to move to China. We were going to be there for about 18 months, and then we were going to be on an around the world trip after that contract was over. And so really looking forward to that. But then,
where were you guys living at that time?
We were living in Chicago.
Chicago. Okay. Are
yeah.
you a Chicago girl originally?
No, I'm a Jersey girl originally.
I can hear it now. I can hear it.
Very far removed, about 20-something years removed, but it comes out when I've been drinking and when I'm really angry. You hear clearly that I am from New Jersey.
Oh, well, we should go out and have drinks and get you pissed off.
I should have booked a later time. We could have had wine time.
That's true. That's true. There's nothing like day drinking, though.
Yeah, that's true. It's summer. That works.
Exactly. So, Cris, sorry I interrupted. Go ahead.
No, that's fine. So he went ahead to start the job, and I stayed behind to kind of close up life and get ready. And we broke up. It was a little bit traumatic. We had been together a long time. We were planning on spending our lives together. But more so than that, we broke up very close to the time that I was planning to leave. And so the process of like opening up all the boxes that we had packed together and like looking at every single cup and saying, oh, who should this be? And making those decisions and talking to his parents because he's off living in China and I'm there just with this pile of stuff. So there was a lot to process, but life was happening so quickly and we were so close to that kind of end point that I said, I don't know where I'm going to go or what I'm going to do with my life, but there is a door that is wide open for me to experience the world. And if I don't walk through that door, I knew I would regret it forever. So,
Cris, a couple of things come to mind for me. Number one, when you look back at the relationship breaking up, was there a particular moment or issue or circumstance that occurred that made you break up? And then number two, second part of that long question is you were rare to go. You wanted to get out. Why was that?
I had already been on a bit of a journey for a few years before that, just kind of trying to find a more authentic life. I had left my corporate job. I started doing some of my own projects. I had gone to work at a nonprofit. I didn't know what I wanted or what I needed, but I knew that what I was doing was not for me. It was not authentically who I was. And so it wasn't necessarily a conscious moment in terms of the relationship. I think we were two people that got along really well. And so we ended up together. He's a wonderful human being, and I will always have a lot of respect for him, especially for the fact that I did not move to China and live in a place where I know lifestyle-wise I would not have been authentic. It would have been a very temporary situation in my mind. So I'm grateful that it happened before I left and that I got to make my own pathway out of it. But I think all of it is just this kind of very slow process of trying to grow up, like you said, and figure out who am I? Because I've just been doing all these things my whole life because I should. And now I get to choose things that just feel right. And so it was just a lot of intuition and like going with my gut for a long while after that.
So what was it that was driving you to go somewhere? What was wrong with the U.S. itself and being able to continue on here?
So when I was very young, when I was still in like high school, I just kind of always had this sense that I wanted to explore. I had no experience. I hadn't traveled very much with my family. I just kind of, I don't know, I just kind of had this sense that I was. And so when I went to university, way back before it was a popular major, I was an international business major. I had been working for Gucci Group USA. I had been working in a multinational company, and it just kind of made sense. That was always the lens that I had. And then nothing ever happened with that life. It just kind of faded away because I got a great job in an American-based company and I got to move around for that job. But so when all of these things started to unravel a little bit, if I followed that thread, it was all of the signs are pointing towards somewhere else. And by the time it was time to make that decision, I had been traveling internationally quite a bit, and I felt so comfortable and at home in these unknown environments. And the growth that you get from experiencing other cultures and other people and other ways of thinking, for me, I think those were the little sparks of joy that I really was kind of interested in finding more of. I wanted a life that was joyful.
So here you are, Heartbreak Hotel, wanting to do a little bit of travel because that's kind of like inside your gut. And where did you go? What did you choose?
So Vietnam kind of just kept inserting itself into my life, right? It was not, there was not a deliberate choice until the very, very end, right before I went. But Vietnam kept appearing. And it's funny because my ex had actually talked about how much he had enjoyed a previous trip to Vietnam and he was in love with the culture. And when he was telling me these stories, I never gave it a second thought. Like I was just like, I don't know. I don't really care about that place, right? There was no magical connection. But in those, 2 months or so, as I'm packing everything and trying to make a plan, it just kept showing up randomly, or I was more aware that it was kind of present in my life. I didn't know what I was going to do. And I, basically booked a one-way ticket to Spain, and I walked across Spain doing the Camino de Santiago, which was an absolutely lovely experience. It's the best gift I've ever given myself, and I would highly recommend it to anybody that has some processing to do.
So that's a trail, and you spent 36 days with your backpack and a broken heart taking care of yourself.
I did, but it was about healing, and it really was about figuring out who I want to be as an independent adult. And I hadn't necessarily had space to process those kinds of thoughts. It was a beautiful experience. And Matthew, this show is all about food and how we experience the world through food. Let me tell you about the ritual that happens on the Camino. Every morning you're having tortilla and coffee and your orange juice, and it's just so tremendous. And then you stop for second breakfast after you've walked about 8 or 10 kilometers.
So explain this to me, Cris, but before you explain how this works, the word tortilla for many Americans, I think it's that flat thing that you make tacos or enchiladas with. What is it in Spain?
Oh my gosh. In Spain, tortilla is just the most amazing, potato cake with egg. And that's the best way I can describe it. It's like a potato cake with egg. And it
Like an
is
omelet?
like a more structured, heartier omelet with just so much more flavor and love kind of cooked into it, right? So basically, you get up every morning and you just pack up your gear. Again, ritual is very important on the Camino. So you wake up and you pack up your gear and you pack it the same way you did all of the other days, and you start heading west. And you head west until you hit a cafe that's open, which in some parts of the Camino, there are many, and you have your choice of where are you going to eat your tortilla and where are you going to enjoy your coffee.
So the Camino de Santiago is a street, not a hiking trail?
It is a hiking trail.
Uh-huh.
So
But there are restaurants on there?
there are restaurants. There are little, basically like homestays where you can get a room. There are churches that you can stay in. There are cafes. So this trail is about, I'll speak in miles. So it's over 500 miles. I started actually in France. There are many, many routes to the Camino. They say the Camino starts the second you step out your front door. But the most popular one starts in this charming little town in France. You walk up and over the Pyrenees Mountains, and then you continue to this town called Santiago de Compostela, which is very near to the coast in Spain. So you basically walk clear across the northern part of Spain, about 500 miles. And you go every day and you just stop, and breakfast is great. Second breakfast is great. Then you stop someplace for lunch and a few beers. And then sometime in the afternoon, you kind of crash out at one of these little homestays, or they're called albergues in Spain, where you can get a room and you get a very cheap meal, and they call it a pilgrim's meal. And it's usually some kind of starch with a nice meat dish, and there's wine and beer just flowing. And it's a really communal experience where everybody kind of comes together over food, and you meet strangers that become your best friends. The people that I met along the way are still very much a part of my life, and we will always have this kind of deep love for each other and these just shared wonderful memory.
How much pre-research did you do, Cris, before going on to the Camino de Santiago? Because it sounds like it's all, everything is there, but you must have known a little bit about it ahead of time.
I knew nothing about it. I knew that I thought it was a nice hike. I didn't have much research at all, other than I needed to carry my stuff with me the whole time I was gone. I didn't know if I would be gone for a month or for 6 months. I had booked a one-way ticket to Barcelona about, 4 or 5 days before I decided to really do this. And so it wasn't planned. It was really just my life was falling apart. And again, things were just in motion. And I didn't feel like it was falling apart at the time. I just felt like I didn't need to put any thought into my action. I just needed to. And
You're very spontaneous.
Yes. Yeah, I am very spontaneous now. The past version of me was not spontaneous at all. The past version of me, corporate Cris, was an extreme planner. So it's been a real life-changing kind of period of my life.
So during that walk, did you get your stuff together during those 36 days? Did you come out on the other side being a brand new woman?
Did I get my stuff together? Yes. I felt like I got my head together. I got my heart in a place where I could understand what I needed to do for myself, and that I needed to keep kind of giving to myself rather than seeking that from other people, right? Just I needed my own direction. In terms of did I feel put together? No, because I didn't have a super great plan, but I will tell you, what solidified the decision to move to Vietnam was this magical moment on my very, very last day of walking. Okay, so day 36. And my friends, you have these trail friends, right? And I was very lucky the whole time we walked. I was one of few people that didn't get any blisters most of the time, or the ones I had were not severe at all. Well, this very last day, I have a terrible, terrible blister, and my friends are eager to finish, and they go ahead. And of course, I'm a little bit sad that we're not all going to reach that end point together. But I stopped and I took off my shoes. I took a little rest for a while, and this woman walks up to me, and she's taking a water break. We start walking very slowly together, and I find out that she is from Da Nang, Vietnam, which before I left for the Camino, when I looked at a map of Vietnam to say like, oh, I wonder if I would go here, I saw this beautiful spot that was right in the middle of Vietnam. There were mountains, there were beaches. I said, well, if I'm going to go, that's the place that I'm going to go. So here it is, the last day of my Camino. My mind is in the right place. I'm focused on my future. And I meet this woman from Da Nang, Vietnam. Now, I can tell you that of the hundreds of people I met on the Camino, I did not meet one other Vietnamese person. But on this last day, this woman is walking with me, and we are having this wonderful conversation about her family and her life in Vietnam, just as we kind of like crest the hill and have the first view of the ending point of the trail. There's this beautiful lighthouse. So we come over this hill and you see the Atlantic Ocean and this lighthouse, and it's just amazing. And that was my future. Like, that was the flash moment of like, oh, this all makes sense now. This is the thing.
So how much longer were you in Spain?
I stayed about another, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks. Just kind of coming around. I knew I wasn't ready to go anywhere else quite yet. I had at that point kind of decided it was going to be Vietnam. But I needed to go back to the US and do the goodbye tour and figure out how to tell my family that that was my decision, because that was going to be a big shock to the family system.
How did the family handle all that, watching you bounce around? Sorry for that term, but were they looking at you going, boy, she just needs her space and her time, and she's going to globetrot a little bit to get her life together?
Yeah, it was tough for them. I would say they were very supportive. They were supportive as much as they could be without understanding it. I always was a little bit, not necessarily the black sheep, but definitely very different approaches to life than the other members of my family. And I'm the only one that ever left. And so I had been moving around the US for a long time, and that was really challenging for them. I'm Catholic Italian from New Jersey, and so we kind of like stick together and stay one place. So I knew that this was going to be really difficult, but I was at a moment in my life, and I was not a young kid, right? I was in my late 30s. So this was something that I kind of had to just bite the bullet and go home and have those conversations, and do it and let them know that I knew I was doing it for me, and that I had confidence that, if I don't love this, it's fine. I'll go do something else. I will always figure it out. I'm going to be okay. Yeah, the conversations were rough, but in time, I think there was a lot of acceptance. And now that it's been 6 years that I've been living abroad, I think at some point everyone kind of realized, that maybe this isn't just a phase.
If you could take a look back at the conversations you had with family on your goodbye tour, who was the person who understood and what made it kind of easy for you? And who was the person who had the most difficult time with this?
So my dad had the most difficult time with it, for sure. I am the first child. And as a girl, I think he has always supported me. But I think he, in general, sometimes has a very difficult time understanding why I might make the choices and not take them personally, not make them about his his parenting or what he was able to provide for us, right? So that was really difficult and something that I needed time and space in Vietnam to process how I felt about some of those more sad reactions to the news.
So
My
aside,
grandmother is the one who responded probably the most positively. She didn't love it. And she said that very clearly. She said, I don't like that you're going to be so far away. I don't like that I can't just see you when you decide to pop in. But I know you wouldn't be doing this unless you really felt like it was the right thing to do. And so to have her support absolutely means the world to me as I continue this journey.
what about friends? What about old friends?
Yeah, I think up until the last few years, I've really been a novelty to my friends. Again, New Jersey is just, I am one of few people that not just left physically, but also kind of left that mindset of how we all were raised. And there's nothing wrong with that mindset at all. It just, I was growing at a different rate from the people that are old friends to me. And I love them very much. And we had some very special moments together. But I think for a long time, I was already the novelty because I chose a different path. I was unmarried with no children and living this lifestyle and moving to different places all the time and really focused on my career. So when my friends heard about it, it was kind of like, wow, that's so cool. I don't get it at all, but like, I can't wait to watch you do this. So supportive, definitely. But that transition also kind of removed any amount of relatability that we had left. And that's okay too, right? That's okay because we still have love for each other.
So I'm curious, what just went through my head is that aside from your former partner who had a nice getaway to Vietnam once upon a time, and the lady you met on the Camino in Spain, who is from Vietnam, what other knowledge did you have ahead of time before just flying to Vietnam?
None. Absolutely none. Absolutely none. And as I said, it kind of kept just like appearing in my life. I would notice it on a clothing tag where I'd never looked at that before. I would turn on the TV and there would be like a Visit Vietnam tourism advertisement or something. I mean, it kept appearing over and over again in these very seemingly superficial or random ways, but it felt like the universe shining a spotlight. And I didn't do any research. And the same thing, Matthew, I think I booked my flight to Vietnam, a one-way ticket, maybe a week before the flight was actually happening.
This is crazy to me because the way that you self-described earlier that the old Cris was a planner and, maybe type A and focused on ABC, that you just became a different kind of a thinker or a different kind of a person. The way you self-described earlier was that the old Cris was very focused and would take care of things and organize and this and that, and probably well thought out decisions were made in your life. And then all of a sudden you become a person who one might associate with a younger person who's just kind of random and willy-nilly. Has that ever occurred to you that your basic personality changed?
Yes. It is actually, it's one of the things I'm most proud of in the last few years because, and I think all of those people that knew me before, once they saw my life in Vietnam, in Costa Rica, here in Dominica, and kind of how light I feel and how much more relatable I am with people, and how I'm a compassionate person now, and I would never have considered myself that before. That spontaneity, I think, is who I am supposed to be, or at least who I'm supposed to be right now. And it shows in my relationships with people because, again, I was in this very contrived life that just never really felt quite right. It didn't feel like I was connected to my life, where now I am values-based and everything that I do has to align with those values. And I consider myself to be very authentic. And I think it's just made me such a better human being.
Take us back to arriving in Vietnam. What were your first thoughts upon landing? Were you thinking about how am I going to afford life here? What am I going to do? Am I going to need to earn money? What's next?
So my first thoughts, you get off the plane and you're in Vietnam, and there's a lot of stimulation. There's a lot of neon lights and all these sounds you've never heard, and you don't understand the language and you can't necessarily read things. And I was in an area that is very popular for tourism, right? So it was accessible, but those first days off the plane, it was overstimulation. It was like, holy shit, what am I doing? And food, I love to eat. I love to experience life through food. And I don't know what I'm eating. I have never eaten Vietnamese food in my life before getting off the plane. I had never had Vietnamese food. So it was just, I had this awareness that I needed to go slowly. And that was really comforting. And so my first few days, I am an explorer, and I like to walk. When I'm in a new city, I like to just walk and see and make note of places. Oh, I want to go back and check that out at a different time of day. I was living at the beach. So going for a walk on the beach, swimming, all of that helps. And very quickly, I had a nice little kind of group of people that were happy to kind of show me the way.
Were they expats or were they Vietnamese?
Both. I would say it was a very welcoming community. And in the 3 years that I was there, we had just such a wonderful little family of people that came together to all share this very weird experience of living in this place during the pandemic, which was absolutely wild in Vietnam.
Oh, you were there in 2020 and later?
Yes. Yeah. So I arrived in September of 2019. And because I had been bouncing around already for about 6 months trying to, work out life, when I first arrived in Vietnam, I was very eager to kind of just like be set up someplace. I wanted a little bit of stability. So I wasn't looking to travel right away. And I had started in December, I had started booking flights to other Asian countries. I had never traveled through that part of the world before. I was very excited to see things. And then by the end of January, that's when we started to feel the effects of flights being canceled, borders being controlled, restrictions being put on things. And
you guys were a couple of months ahead of the rest of the United States, for instance.
Yeah. And I remember telling my mom, especially, I remember having a conversation with her saying, like, this is going to be a big deal. This is something. And her kind of like blowing it off, like, no, they're kind of talking about it here. It's going to be fine. And there was just this sense for us, I guess, because we were a little bit ahead of the wave, that like, no, I think this is weird. This has a vibe to it that's not necessarily super positive. But we were really lucky for a long time. And Vietnam was one of the countries that was kind of applauded for their response in the first half of the pandemic. And then things went downhill. But I think the thing about COVID is that everybody experienced it so differently. I mean, even people in the same household internalized what was going on in really different ways. And so you have these just like super personal experiences, and it was not easy for anybody. I don't think there was any place that had it easier than other places. It just kind of created this disconnect among people.
Were you living in a hostel in Vietnam during this time?
No, I was in an apartment. And again, we had a really nice community. Most of our Vietnamese friends, a lot of them had left and gone back to their hometowns because, work was being opened and closed for people, and they no longer had reliable income. And one of the most amazing things about life in Vietnam was that sense of community, and people will always take care of each other. So when finances got tough, people moved back to their hometown. And they just stayed together and did what they had to do to keep each other strong and kind of working through that. But for the rest of us, for those expats, I mean, there was the option to leave. Ironically, there was also a big corruption scandal going on within the immigration department. And so people were getting their visas canceled because there were no repatriation flights. People were not traveling at all.
Right.
But then every once in a while, there would be kind of this exodus where they would just cancel people's visas, and people, my boyfriend at the time, I had to be like basically smuggled out of the country through all these like shady efforts. It was really wild. And so the people that were left, so you're watching your local friends move back to their hometowns and you miss them. You're watching other expats have to find their way out of the country, again, in very shady ways. And so the group of us that were left, there was just this bond. And so as we went through different waves of being able to spend time together or not, things became very, I would say, very easy for us to connect to each other. Even the people that maybe pre-pandemic, you didn't really get along with them, you didn't love them. All of a sudden, it was like, oh, love that guy. He's great. So it was this really interesting social experiment. And as difficult as it was also such a wonderful growth opportunity to be so isolated from anything that would have made me comfortable, from anything that I knew. And so, there was at some point a very conscious choice. If I leave here, I can't come back. And I'm not ready to give up this mindset and go back to the US where I might expect, or others might expect, that I go back to my old mindset. And so for me, it wasn't really something I ever even considered. It was like, no, I'm just here and I'm going to work through this until the end.
So you stuck it out. You were there in Vietnam less than 1 year when COVID struck.
Yes, I had only been there about 5 months. And then our borders were closed for well over 2 years. So that was, it was a long time.
How many times did you get COVID?
0.
No kidding.
Yeah, 0.
You're in the minority of almost everyone I've spoken with.
I know. I believe, there's no way to confirm this, but I believe I had it right before we knew what it was in early January of that year. I was sick like I've never been sick in my life with a lot of the same symptoms. But then once we knew what it was and we started talking about it, and certainly there was, mandatory testing going on a regular basis, I never had it again. And my brother, my youngest brother, ended up, I think he had it like 5 or 6 times.
Right.
But no, I never had a positive test.
Okay, let's cut to all that delicious food in Vietnam, because you were there for 3 years. You must have experienced a lot. Did you learn the language regarding the food, or you just know a couple of names of dishes that you liked, or how did that whole thing work?
No, I mean, I was speaking Vietnamese probably at like a 3rd grade level by the time that I left. I still practice it here and there, obviously without regular practice. I'm not going to grow that skill. But the food was amazing. Rat nhon is the way that you would say delicious in Vietnam, in Vietnamese. And oh my gosh, just endless seafood. When I first arrived in Vietnam, I had stopped eating meat. It was Christmas of 2019. So I had only been there a couple of months, and I had chicken for the very last time. So I arrived in Vietnam. I tried all the things. I ate all the meat. And then I knew it was something that I had wanted to do for a while, just to see how my body responded to not eating meat. My father was a charter boat captain. So my father was a fisherman. So the idea of living at the beach and giving up seafood was a bit too far for me to go.
Oh, yeah.
But oh my gosh, these seafood restaurants in Vietnam are just outstanding. And there are night markets everywhere where you can go and you can get, 24 oysters for basically like $3 US. And just there is this family style way of eating in Vietnam. And so even as a solo person to go sit down at a restaurant, there's like 5 plates in front of me and you're just going, going, going. It was absolutely incredible. And I'll tell you what, it was the healthiest food I've ever consistently eaten in my life.
Yeah, we should probably tell our friends watching us right now that Vietnamese cuisine is way different than other Southeast Asian cuisines. A lot of fresh veg and a lot of fresh flavors. They don't fry like they do in other countries in Southeast Asia and so on. So I've always thought it was one of the best cuisines out there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just super clean. And it's funny because the best places to eat are the little street stalls or just at someone's home. And the number of times you get invited to somebody's home just to come and have a meal. The thing that was really great about Vietnam was I had a motorbike. I loved, before I even got there in the US, I love road trips. I'm a big road tripper. And I like to just do that kind of exploring. Oh, let's stop here. Oh, let me check that out. Oh, let's see what they have going on here. And so road tripping on a motorbike in a country where you don't really speak the language, but the people are so friendly and welcoming and hospitable and wanting to share with you. Now, the thing about Vietnam is every village, basically, every area, like little micro area of the country has their own specialty dish. So if you drive down the road 20 miles, you're eating something completely different from what you're having in the town that you live in. And what a great way to experience food. And again, half the time you don't know, you don't really know what you're eating and trying to pick up those food words. There's also some dialect issues. And people have different food names for the same item, but whether they're from the north of Vietnam or the south of Vietnam. But my gosh, it was just, it was a fully immersive experience, but just eating. Anytime you go to eat is a fully immersive experience and just magical.
I think most people are probably familiar with banh mi, which are the sandwiches that they do in Vietnamese places and probably in Vietnam too. But the confusing thing is that a lot of the foods there have that word banh in it, and banh mi just means wheat bread. So they have banh chung, which is like rice cake, and they have banh bao, which is a steamed version. So is that something that was confusing for you because everything or many things had the word banh in it, not necessarily me after that?
No, because that's like one of the first things that local people explain to you. So banh is the word for bread. And then it's so in your face. There's all these little street carts and stalls and everybody's got to sign up. Banh Dao is a great example. I mean, there's a guy driving around with a little steamer pot on the back of his motorbike, and he's got this little speaker, and he's bang bao, and there's this whole like cadence to it all. So that part, it's not really confusing because it's kind of always present. You kind of absorb all that information very quickly. And again, local people, especially the youth, right? So people in their early 20s, are very eager to practice their English, to get to know anybody that they can, and share their culture. And so there is a lot of that approach. Oh, come on, I'm just going to show you what you need to know, or I'm just going to tell you what you need to do, or I'm just going to order for you and I'll tell you what you're eating. So there's a lot of that caretaking that was happening with people from the community all over the place. And you don't even have to know the people. You might be sitting at a table in a cafe and trying to make your coffee order, which in Vietnamese, like coffee culture in Vietnam is insane. That's a whole other language to be learned. But you'd be sitting at a cafe and all you have to do is look over and somebody, oh, do you need help? Oh, what do you want? What can I get for you? And it's just amazing.
I always tell people, Cris, about Vietnamese food because a lot of people are not that familiar with it. And I let them know that Vietnam was a French holding for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a lot of French influence. And that's why bread is so important there versus other Southeast Asian countries where it's rice or noodles. But Vietnam is particular to the French culture. And I think that's why bread is so popular there.
That could be it. And it is good bread. It is good bread. And it is interesting because food is really the only place that you see that French influence still being present. And the Vietnamese are very clear in the way that they speak about how outsiders came in, right? So they talk about the relationship with China and how when China invaded, they were there, basically for like 2,000 years. And then French people came in and they were around for 400 years. And then the Americans came in and obviously that was a very short stint. But they're able to articulate really well the influences that were left behind. But I think with French culture, it really is much more so about the food than anything else. There weren't too many other visible traces of it.
What about the language?
God.
Wasn't there some influence on the French language onto Vietnam?
You know what? I'd probably have to be a little bit more fluent to answer that question.
So here you are, you're in Vietnam, you're looking to find yourself. You arrive there not knowing what you're going to do, where you're going to go. COVID's happening. Do you remember your first holy shit, I'm living here now moment?
There were a lot of those moments. There was this joyfulness. Again, I felt so much freedom. The motorbike was a big part of that, right? It was this skill of, gosh, if I look back to 16-year-old version of me, I would have never thought I was going to live in Asia. I would have never thought I was going to be driving a motorcycle and living my life. But that is the time on my motorbike is when I experienced the most frequent moments of joy like that. Like looking at the coastline or the mountains, or you're on a motorbike. So the smells that kind of assault you just driving down the road, from, wonderful smells of food to, oh my gosh, what has died and everything in between. But it's just this sensory assault that is so magical. And I really found myself saying almost every day when I was driving, I can't believe I get to do this. I am so grateful that I'm having this opportunity. I can't believe this is my life. And there's something really magical about that. And it just opens you up to so many other great opportunities that you wouldn't normally see because you're looking at the details of life and not at the bigger picture.
How long were you in Vietnam, and did you choose to leave there or were you deported?
Wow, what a specific question. I was there for just about 3 years. I knew that my time was coming to an end, but it came to an end a few months before I had planned, because I did actually, deported is the word that I use. I don't really know how to explain it. My passport got caught up in this corruption scandal that was going on. So basically what happened to me is I was in this legal, gray zone where they pulled my work visa. I was there fully legitimately. I was a resident. They pulled that and they wouldn't issue me any type of new visa. And they also refused to issue me an exit visa. So in order to leave the country, you have to have an exit visa. You can't get on the plane without that stamp, but they wouldn't do that. So I was in this kind of no man's land where there were these constant threats, but I couldn't leave even if I wanted to. And it was very complicated. And when I was
Did you have,
finally leaving, I didn't know necessarily that I was leaving. It was, I've packed up all my stuff. I'm going to go take a flight to Hanoi because my local airport was less friendly with these types of situations. So I'm going to go up to Hanoi and I'm going to take a chance that I'm going to find my way out of the country. And I did not know I was leaving. There's a lot more here, and I want to respect Vietnam, and I want to recommend people travel. This is not currently an issue that's going on. Please go visit. It's a wonderful place. But I didn't know I was leaving until I was literally in my seat on the plane, and I had been escorted there by someone.
did you have to consult with American consultants or the consulate?
Oh no, they do not support visa related issues. The con No, there was absolutely. I reached out. I did ask for help, but they don't support visa related issues. So that was disappointing and made it a bit more challenging.
You're trying to get out of Vietnam. Where were you headed, or were you just trying to get out? What? I don't get it.
I was just trying to get out. I knew that because my leaving was so abrupt, I knew it was going to be a rocky transition for me. I wasn't super keen to go back to the US right away. I thought, oh, I need some time by myself for a minute, even though I had been in Vietnam. I had a very demanding job and a lot of responsibility. And I thought, I just need a vacation in between leaving this life and going to visit all my people that I haven't seen in 3 years.
You said
I'm a
that you're
different
working.
person.
You're working in Vietnam. You had a demanding job in Vietnam.
Yes.
What
Yes.
was that?
I was general manager of a startup English language center. So I had built it with, there were some investors. It was a franchise location of an absolutely wonderful English language center. And yeah, so I built it from the ground up and made it a success. And it was wonderful. But it was a very stressful time to be leading a school when I had very little experience in education. Yeah, that's a whole other podcast episode, I think.
So you're getting out of Dodge. They
I'm
put you on a plane, or did you choose a destination?
No, so I chose to go back to the US right away. I had credit cards that had expired. I wasn't sure if my debit card was going to work. So I had a lot of this is too many questions, and it's better for me to just go back to the US and figure it out, right? Let me go where at least I know I can make my business, like I can do the business parts of my life that need to get done. I was very eager to see my family. But again, I knew that after 3 years of not seeing anybody, that it was going to be intense. And of course it was, but a wonderful reunion. And I got to spend a couple months with them before found another investor that was interested in opening up a school. And I went to Costa Rica to help someone then do that. So, so the transitions are something that I am proud to say after a few really rocky ones, I kind of nailed down that formula, and now they feel nice and easy and intentional and light.
Okay, so you pivoted almost immediately. You launched a school in Costa Rica with a new investor. How long were you there, and what was the jungle like?
I was in Costa Rica for a little more than a year and a half. Jungle life was great. It was the same situation. I was in kind of a touristy area that was jungle, but still accessible to modern conveniences to some extent. But it was, it was a whole other type of wild, and it was a new culture. I think I had a bit of cockiness to me where I was like, I just lived in Vietnam for 3 years during COVID, and I started a school. So I can go anywhere and do anything. And the reality was Costa Rica was a very humbling experience because it was rough. I was in a different place, and mentally and emotionally, and it was wonderful. I loved the growth that I had there, but it was not an easy experience. And it was very humbling in the sense that it was like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you go or how many times you redo your life. There's going to be new challenges, and it's about your mindset and your heart set going into those experiences. So now I know to kind of just take my time and how to process all those new experiences, because every new place, it is overstimulating, and it's all kinds of new challenges. And, you know, the simple things like, how do I make sure my electricity stays on? How do I find an apartment? What do I do about getting around? Is there public transportation? How do I feed myself? How far does my income go? Right? I'm getting paid in local currency. How far does my income go? Can I live on this? All of those things.
Why did those questions surface in Costa Rica, but apparently they didn't when you went to Vietnam previously?
Yeah, because Vietnam was, again, it was all happening so fast. I didn't have any time to think about these things before I went. And there was some beauty in that. There was a lot of simplicity in that mindset of you got to just go with it. And so the third time around moving here to Dominica, that was my attitude. It was, this is going to be hard. It's going to be harder than it is easy. And you don't know what you're doing. So accept that and just go with the journey. And that made it very palatable, I think.
Dominica is where?
Dominica is a tiny little island in the Caribbean. It is not the same as Dominican Republic. Dominica is closer to St. Lucia and Barbados, if people are familiar with those islands. And it's considered the nature isle. It's a very rugged place. There are not a lot of resorts. But it's just, it's a beautiful place to be. There are, I think, 365 rivers here. I have been to at least 20 different waterfalls. I have a little map here. You can see this is the whole island. And as I've experienced different places, I kind of check them off. But it's a really, really nice place to visit. And the people here, again, are lovely. I've been, I think, lucky to kind of blindly choose these places where the culture is one of community and love and helpfulness.
So you were in Costa Rica for how long before coming here to?
About a year and a half I was in Costa Rica. And then I've been here for a year.
Okay. It sounds to me, and tell me if I'm wrong, that this quest to find yourself, at the top of the show, you said you were like seeking authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like, from my perspective, that you've kind of bounced around a lot. Has this been kind of a messy journey for you this past 10 years or so? How do you emotionally sustain yourself? And, you know, has loneliness been at the forefront of this experience for you?
No, not at the forefront. It is present. It is something that I think anybody that chooses, a lot of people might say that I am isolating, or I've had friends tell me, oh, maybe you're trying to geographically solve your problems. Loneliness is something that I think I'm really proud that I've had to confront that kind of head on and find all of the ways that help me not need that validation from other people, not need the blessing from anyone to go out and live my life the way it feels right, not need anyone to be okay if I decide to change my mind or change course a little bit. I think what makes that easier is the age part of it. You know, there's a certain confidence, I think, that comes when you start to get into your 40s, where you're just like, well, I mean, if I'm not doing it for me, who else is they doing it for?
Mm-hmm.
But there's something beautiful also in the stillness and being able to be comfortable with yourself and your own presence. And I look at some of my loved ones that have a really hard time ever being alone and the discomfort they feel inside their own heads. And for me, I've done a lot of work. It's been a lot of hard work and coaching and therapy and journaling and crying and laughing and throwing myself into the sea. That's kind of helped that no matter how difficult it gets and no matter how lonely I might feel in a moment, that is all absolutely temporary. And there is some beautiful experience just around the bend. And it absolutely will appear to me as long as I am open to having it appear.
Do people who know you wonder or ask you, so Cris, when are you going to settle down? Would you like to start a family? What's next? That kind of thing. Because it sounds like it's been constant reinvention for the past 10 or so years.
Yeah, it definitely has been. People have stopped asking that question. They did for a very long time. Again, I think age helps that. I think the question about children has kind of moved out of my sphere. But to me, I am very comfortable with change. I enjoy the process of it, and I appreciate that the process is not easy, that it does require some work and some growth, that there is a certain amount of suffering or hardship that is required in order to be able to fully enjoy the opposite side of that coin, to be fully present in those happiest moments. I feel like I need to experience some of these things. For me, I see my future as I like the idea of continuing to move around every year to 3 or 4 years and experience new things. But I'm also very open to the idea that if I land in a place that feels like I'm supposed to stay there, I have no problem staying there. If I meet a partner and it feels like we're supposed to have a structured life together or be married, I'm not opposed to any of these things. It just hasn't struck me as feeling like the right thing up until now.
Very interesting. So are you currently serving in the Peace Corps?
I currently am serving in the Peace Corps. That's right.
Now, you have to tell us what that's like. Like, what's the pay like? What's your day-to-day job or, that kind of thing?
So I am a special education teacher trainer. So I have been working in partnership with the Ministry of Education, the government organization, as well as a local school here and the teachers union to create trainings to help teachers become empowered to have more inclusive classrooms that consider the needs of all of their students. In terms of the life within the Peace Corps, I'll have to leave that as a mystery for the time being until my service is complete.
And what does that mean?
That means that there are, as you can imagine, volunteering with a government organization, there are a lot of rules about what we are and are not permitted to say. And so as someone who speaks authentically, I don't necessarily trust myself to follow those rules in the chain of a conversation. So it's probably best that I don't say too much other than I think this is a wonderful opportunity to experience other cultures and be of service. So if you're considering some type of service, but military is not your style, I would say the U.S. Peace Corps is definitely a great avenue to explore. And I would encourage any of the people that are listening or watching to reach out to myself or any other person that is a former Peace Corps volunteer or a current Peace Corps volunteer. I think everyone is really willing to talk about their experience in kind of one-on-one, non-public conversation.
Well, yours has been a very juicy and multinational story, and I am looking forward to hearing more about your future. How would people get a hold of you if they were interested in connecting?
Yeah, great. So my educational consulting company is called Teaching Up. My website is teaching-up.com. And also my name, I'm sure, will be linked in the show notes. So I encourage anybody to reach out either through my website or my LinkedIn profile. And I'm more than happy to connect. I think that's one of the best parts about this type of lifestyle is finding people. And I was complimenting you earlier about the magical way that you kind of connect people and their stories. And I love that same kind of approach. So please feel free to reach out if something has resonated or you're just curious about how it's all worked. My next stop on the tour, the world tour, in October of this year, I'll be headed to Antigua, Guatemala, at least for a little bit. So especially if you're there or you know someone there, I would love to connect.
I'm assuming that you must speak Spanish.
No, Italian is kind of my heritage. I speak Spanish, okay, and that's one of my goals for the next year. Actually, is I'd love to become truly fluent in Spanish. So, being in a Spanish-speaking country again will help that.
Well, we look forward to hearing about the rest of your journey next time. But, my audience would be upset if they didn't know. Cris, what have you eaten today?
I had, okay, so I had a wonderful local breakfast dish, baked. It's called bakes. It's basically like fried bread. I had my bakes with cheese. So they stuffed some cheese inside of there. Very popular breakfast food here in Dominica. And then for lunch, actually, I made myself a little Asian stir fry, a little noodle dish with some veggies. And a good friend of mine just left, and I inherited some wonderful Korean hot chili from her. So I threw that in and made it a little spicy.
Oh, that sounds really good. So you're pretty good in the kitchen. You can handle yourself.
I can. I like to, same with my lifestyle, I like to experiment and explore with food. So there's a lot of, hey, I wonder if these things go together kind of approach to cooking.
Well, of course, you've been so fortunate going to many countries that are inexpensive to be able to eat the specialties from the local areas. That must be fantastic too.
Absolutely. And here, island life fish are plentiful. And it's great to just run down. This morning, I went down to the market and for 80 EC, which is basically like 25 US dollars, I got, I think, 7 pounds of fresh yellowfin tuna and mahi-mahi. So I'm set for quite a while.
Wow. So how will you prepare those?
Great question. I don't know. I've been making a lot of fish burgers, kind of American style food is not readily available here on islands. So once in a while you want some comfort. So I have been making a lot of fish burgers lately. And I've got some fresh pickles that I just made waiting for me in my fridge. So I might experiment with a fish burger with both tuna and mahi.
Nice. Sounds good. Cris Santoro, thank you so much for visiting with me here on 50 Tastes of Gray.
Thank you, Matthew. It's been lovely to join you.